Look, most people over 50 aren't actually afraid to spend money. They're actually afraid of running out of money. And those two are not the same thing. Hi, I'm Scott Mullet. Thank you. Thank you. You're always so generous with the applause. In this episode of The Wise Lane, we're starting the new year 2026 with an exact test to know whether you can spend confidently or whether you need to make changes. And although The Wise Lane focuses on those of us that are 50 and over, this episode rings true on a multi-generational basis. So bring on the Gen Zers and the millennials. Yee-haw! All right, back to money. You know what's weird? I know people with $400,000 and people with $4 million. And these people can have the same fear and say the same sentence. I'm scared to spend. Why is that? It's because the brain hasn't updated the reality. Especially for those of us over 50 and maybe retired, the brain remembers the 30 years of paycheck uncertainty, layoffs, recessions, raising kids, college tuition, scrambling when something really big broke. Oh my gosh, my car broke down. I got to fix this and that. Our brains learned money out the door equals danger, 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 danger. So even when you have enough, that fear stays. It's not a math problem. It's a security problem. And here's how you can fix that fear. You replace that uncertainty with clarity. Once you know the numbers, you take that power back. So here's a money safety test, and it has 3 numbers. That's it. Now you got to calculate those numbers, but there's 3. And this test can be used whether you are 50, 60, 25, 35. This is from Gen Z to boomers. So the 3 things you need to know. 1, what is your total cash flow? 2, what are your total core expenses? And 3, how much of a risk buffer are you comfortable with? So let's break those 3 down. The first one, your cash flow. So what's coming in for you every month? We're talking recurring monthly payments. There also could be large quarterly payments that come in, which means you might have to do some adjustments there to bring in the quarterly from monthly. But in any case, here are some typical providers of your income. Your work paycheck, whether it's part-time or full-time. Your Social Security, your pensions, your annuities, rental income, regularly timed portfolio withdrawals, like from an IRA or maybe a 401k plan, maybe something coming out of a taxable brokerage account, dividend or interest payments. They also could be coming out of any of those. You add all those up. This number is your baseline safety net. That's all money you have coming in. Now you take your core expenses. So this is the second number you need to calculate. This is what does life actually cost you? And I'm talking non-negotiables, right? So we're housing, utilities, food, healthcare, transportation, your insurance, because everyone's got to have insurance. These are really your basic living needs. All right. So we're not talking about travel. We're not talking about gifts, the fun, the entertainment. No. This is the core of what someone might consider your living essentials. And the final number you really want to figure out is your risk buffer. So what protects you when life punches you in the jaw? Boom. You need a buffer that protects your lifestyle during stock market drops, just bad years in general for things. Surprise expenses that come, right? Big expenses, medical curveballs, periods of inflation spikes, like we saw 2021, 2022. Buffers are going to vary from person to person, but they should cover all those core expenses we discussed. Some people may be 3 to 6 month risk buffers what they want. Some are 12 to 24 months. In either case, this needs to be your most liquid holdings. Normally that would be checking, savings, money market accounts. Your conservative, really conservative investments like high quality treasuries or AAA municipal bonds, bank CDs. All of those could be counted in your risk buffer. And once you have these 3 numbers, there are only 3 possible outcomes. with those three different big numbers. Outcome A is, hey, I'm safer than I thought I was. Huge congratulations. We'll get the New Year's thing. Yeah, your cash flow is greater than your core expenses. Your risk buffer is solid. Maybe it's even more than 24 months. Great job. If it is more than 24 months, you could actually spend more freely or put more of that risk buffer into your long-term investment growth strategies, which might make your monthly cash flow greater. In any case, your fear is leftover psychology and not reality if you're outcome A. Now, if you're outcome B, that means you're almost safe, but just not quite. You're close, but not fully covered. This is where tiny adjustments can solve big fears, like adding some part-time work for yourself, downsizing homes, what have you, delaying retirement, waiting to collect a higher Social Security payment. So you work a little bit longer, and then when you retire, your Social Security payment's higher. Adjusting the withdrawal rate from your IRA or your 401k. Also, potentially revisit your investment risks. Perhaps you're being too conservative in some of your holdings, and you could generate larger dividends or interest payments that would increase your cash flow. If you are close there, take a very modest and gradual approach to taking on any more risk in your investment portfolio for that extra reward, because this is a slippery slope. Please consult with a financial advisor before getting too far out over your skis, woohoo, and going off that cliff. Small moves make big pieces of mind. Outcome C, I'm really negative and I'm failing this test. Oh no, this is not a good solution. You have big gaps to fill. You're going to need to make drastic changes in both income and most likely core expenses. So to boost cash flow, even if you're recently retired, you may need to return to full-time work for several more years. If you're still working, I'm sorry to say you may need to get a second job. Not great news. And in terms of your core expenses, downsizing your house or your condo or your apartment could play a helpful role. Also, potentially moving to other areas of your state or of the country or even of your county where there's a lower cost of living. You could also downsize your transportation costs. If you're a couple, can you get by on one car? If you drive a big, large SUV that costs $150 to fill a gas tank, can you trade that in and get a more economical car, which has not only lower energy costs, but also lower potential insurance costs? It sounds cliche, but desperate times do call for desperate measures. Sorry. Finally, outcome D. Hey, dude, I don't know my number. Yeah, and guess what? This is the most common outcome, which means please take some time to get all your cash flow, your expense information, all of that organized and categorized, because you're going to need to be able to get all of this calculated. Sorry if you see my dog getting its bone in the background. Because if you don't know your number, it's like driving cross country with the fuel gauge broken. Yeah, oh my gosh, how much gas do I have? Of course you're scared. Who wouldn't be? And that fear will not go away until those numbers are known. All right, we're near the end, so it's time to wrap it up and tie up that bow. Here's your homework. If you want to spend money without fear, run the money safety test we've been talking about. Simple steps. Write down your monthly cash inflow. You got to figure all that out. Write down your core expenses. Again, your core expenses. You got to figure those out. Then check your buffer, your risk buffer. How many months could you live if the market froze tomorrow? 1 month? 24 months? It's a big range. Once you know that, you'll know exactly how much you can spend and exactly how safe you are. Pat yourself on the back for a job well done for getting all those numbers organized. If you found this helpful, thought-provoking, maybe a little bit entertaining, please hit that like button. If you want to hear more weekly insights about money, mindset, modern living after 50, please subscribe to The Wise Lane. Without likes and subscribes, there may be no more Wise Lane.
Ouch.
No matter your age or work status, please be smart, intentional, purposeful with your money. It's all about stewardship, baby. I'm Scott Mullet. Thanks for watching.